Hello and welcome to this, which is Season 10, Episode 16 of the Ubuntu podcast. In this episode, we're going to interview Mike Hall of Endless Computers. We'll also have some command line love and go over your feedback. My name's Joey, and joining me this week are Alan.
Hello, you.
Mark.
Hello, hello.
And Martin.
Oh my god, it's Joey.
Yes. Yes. What have you been doing then, Mark?
What I've been doing, I went camping in the New Forest.
Whereabouts?
Is the New Forest? Whereabouts is the New Forest?
Oh yes, I suppose not all of our listeners will know exactly what I mean when I say the New Forest. So the New Forest is a national park in Hampshire, which is in the south of England, on the south coast. And it's not as new as the name might suggest.
It always feels weird to call it the New Forest.
It's the newest forest we have, which is quite old.
Oh.
Yeah, it's about 500 years now, isn't it?
Yeah. But yes, went for a friend's stag do. So we went canoeing and did archery and sat in a tent playing board games.
Awesome.
Yes. And we got visited by a baby donkey.
A baby donkey?
Yeah, they do that.
Yeah, they have all sorts of like...
They roaming wild donkeys?
Yeah, roaming, yeah.
And
so
ponies.
Sheep and cows and ponies and all sorts, and donkeys.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really, yeah, so the campsite is just, you just have ponies just wandering past and nicking your food if you're not careful. It's quite fun.
When my daughter was a toddler, we were driving through the New Forest and, toddlers need to go to the toilet, so we stopped. There wasn't anywhere, so we used the potty, and we got bombarded by these donkeys who could hear the rustling, and they rather energetically consumed the contents of my daughter's potty. So yeah, they'll quite literally eat anything.
Wow.
It's quite cute. My sister lives down in the New Forest, and it's quite nice when you can tell at what point the kids have grown up. Like when we used to drive down there, you drive through the New Forest, it's very pretty and it's kind of heathlandy, and then horses just walk out into the road in front of you, and you point at the horses and go, look, there's a horse, and the kids are like, oh, where? And now trying to get them to look at the horse instead of looking at their phone is quite an exercise. So yeah, I've seen a horse, Dad. I know what a horse looks like. Yeah. Awesome. Should we get on with it?
Let's.
I'll take that as a yes. So we wanted to get on our good friend Mike Hall, who you may know from past things as Ubuntu Online Summit and Ubuntu Community Team Q&A and many other things in the Ubuntu world. But more recently, Mike has moved on to Endless Computers. Hello, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you? Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I screwed that up, didn't I?
Hello, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you?
Tickety-boo. So, you've not been at Endless long, right? You've been there about a week or so?
2.5 weeks.
Gosh, doesn't time fly?
It does, yeah. It's like just yesterday.
So for those people who don't know what Endless is, give us the elevator pitch of what Endless is and what they do.
So, Endless is like Ubuntu with more of a social mission. It's designed specifically to target users who can't really use the current crop of technology that we have, either because it's too expensive or because it requires an always-on internet connection that they don't have. So it's really geared towards people who are going to be running it offline on low-powered or second-hand hardware, but to still be useful for them in the way that technology is useful for everybody else.
So is this mostly targeted at people in, like, I know those of us who live in the West and affluent nations where high-speed broadband and, wireless internet is, like, everywhere. Is it more tailored for people who are not in those locations? So, other countries, basically, or is there some other target market?
It's not so much country, but like areas within a country that are not as well off. So right now they've got deals with Acer and Asus shipping computers in Brazil and in Mexico and now in Guatemala, I think, and Indonesia is about to start. So they're not necessarily countries that you would think of as being overly impoverished, but there are regions there where it is, and the people, the gap between the people who have access to technology and who don't is getting wider and wider.
Right. And so these, in some cases, these are going to be their first and only computer. Is that right?
Right. So when the company started, they were planning on using a mobile platform like a phone or a tablet to do this. And they ran that for about a year or two and decided that what people really wanted was an actual desktop computer so that they could do productivity stuff, not just, going online and watching videos or something. So they shifted a few years back from this mobile platform to more of an actual desktop setup. And that's when they switched from an Android base to a Debian base.
So you mentioned a moment ago that you've got some sort of deals in other countries with some OEMs who we're probably quite familiar with. Is this they're shipping their devices with your OS on, or is there some sort of customization of the OS that Endless do, or is it some sort of other thing where Endless make the computer and ship it as one unit?
So Endless made a few computers. A couple years back, they started doing this. They just 3 models of computer that they made to really prove the concept of the OS on actual hardware. And those were little ARM-based hardware PCs that they didn't have an integrated screen or anything. They were made to connect up to a TV instead of a regular monitor. But they'd have a Raspberry Pi or something in them, and they're these just cute little pieces of hardware. And that let them demonstrate and prove the software of it, and that got the OEMs interested. So we make custom images for the OEMs depending on where they're shipping it to, because a lot of the times they'll be working with a government organization that has specific software requirements for the target demographic that they're going into. So each OEM has its own custom image, but more or less the operating system is the same.
So there's lots of, good social work going on there and very important work in parts of the country, parts of the world that, deprived of readily available computer resources. But where's the money coming from to sort of make this all happen?
Well, some of it's coming from the OEM deals that we already have. There's, like what Ubuntu does with Dell or whoever. There's a deal where we enable their hardware and then they go and they sell that hardware and we get money for the enablement part of it. So same kind of deal. There's a lot of work with, like I said, government organizations where they've got a little bucket of money to do something with, and they put out bids, and we'll bid on those with the OEMs sometimes as partners on that. But it's a very small company. It's 70, 80 people right now, so it's 1/10 the size of Canonical, and Canonical even is still a small company. So it's very startup stage right now. It's still very investor funded at this point.
Mm-hmm. How long has it been going for, the company?
It started in, I think, 2013. So it's not brand new, but like I said, they made a major shift a few years back as to what they were actually doing to reach their social mission.
Right. And so what is Endless OS? What makes up Endless OS exactly?
So Endless OS is really interesting, and you guys especially will find this interesting because it is a Debian base, but it has a read-only system image, and everything on top of that is built with OS tree and Flatpaks.
Interesting.
I did not know that.
So it's like what the Ubuntu Personal was going to be, when we rolled the phone and the desktop together. It's the same technical kind of setup, just using OS tree and Flatpak instead of snaps.
So I downloaded the ISO image just recently and installed it on a VM, and I noticed that there's a couple of images. One's like a basic low disk space image, and there's one super chunky, multi-gigabyte image. And if you install that, you get everything installed,
Yes.
the whole world. Is that what you would get if you bought a laptop from one of these vendors?
Yes. So what the company did when they started out on this is they went out to figure out, okay, what do people need to do on these computers? What do they need from the internet to be useful on this? And there was a lot of the stuff there that you could preload. So like 80% or so of the most often viewed Wikipedia pages will fit into that download space. So there's a huge chunk of Wikipedia that's included on there already. Like you said, it's got all the apps on there already so that they're all available there for you. So part of the offline model is to preload. Part of it is to provide a content framework on the back end that lets apps download content when internet is cheap. So overnight, when nobody's using cellular data, the mobile providers can sell cheaper data rates, and then these computers could take advantage of that cheaper rate to load all of the next day's news headlines that are already, printed, just not been loaded on the computer yet. So it can go and prefetch these during cheap times or free times if you take your computer into a cafe or something that's got free Wi-Fi. And we're even working on a mechanism now where you can have somebody load all that stuff onto a USB stick and then take it around to a village and share it with everybody. So everybody gets, new Wikipedia content, new news content, whatever's apps that they have that are getting content can be passed around on USB sticks instead of needing an internet connection at all.
Right.
So who's creating this content? It must be coming from somewhere.
Right now, the apps for this have been created internally. We're building out a set of frameworks and tools to support that. That's going to roll out probably sometime over the summer. We're going to start really pushing that. It's all just finishing coming together now. So we've got tools to build really nice looking apps built on these content frameworks. There's a modular system to where you can say, okay, I've got this data feed, put it into this template. Here's, what fields to get images from, what fields to get titles from, and it will build you a very nice looking app based on that data feed with very little work on your part. And then, they're all flat packs, so the tools are going to create flat packs for them. We're also working with some of the upstream flat pack developers who are launching something called Flat Hub, which is a single Flat Hub repository that's going to be open to people to submit their own apps to. So instead of everyone hosting their own Flatpak repository for apps, they can all submit them to this Flat Hub, and then any distro that has that Flat Hub, or any even user who has enabled that Flat Hub repository, gets access to that whole catalog of apps. So that's something that we at Endless are going to be using once that's available. That'll probably be in like an October release that we start using that. So we're going to encourage developers, third-party developers, to start making, flat packs in this Flat Hub so that our users can get them also.
Nice.
So what sort of hardware is Endless currently being sold on? Is there a particular level of system spec that you target?
I don't know if there's a specific level. I know, like I said, the hardware that they made, the Endless Mini and the Mission One, were little ARM boards. But I think what Acer and Asus are shipping are just standard Intel laptops.
Right.
Yeah, I tested on a VM on my desktop and it ran perfectly fine. And I also tested on a rather old, crusty Windows XP era or Windows Vista era kind of laptop. And it was, as you'd expect, a bit slower on a lower end machine, but it worked, and I was quite surprised at the variety of applications on there. There was a lot of preloaded content. Like you say, I managed to open up an encyclopedia app and search for Doctor Who and find the entire Wikipedia page for Doctor Who, and search the recipes app, and there was tons of recipes in there with all the, and it was formatted nicely and consistently between all the recipes. It was really, it was quite nicely done. If I was offline and dumped on a desert island and someone offered me one laptop, I would probably take an Endless one because it just comes preloaded with so much stuff.
And those apps were built with this content framework I was talking about. They were like the guinea pig apps to make that a usable framework so that we can release it to other people. So the look and feel of those, that's so nice, is what is going to be what we try and get developers to make for us. And it should be really easy for them to get that level of design quality.
So what is the desktop operating system and what is this framework that you've been talking about?
So the main OS is based on Debian. The shell is a customized GNOME shell. It's like 4 versions old in the current release. The next big release we have, 3.2, is going to update to GNOME 3.22, I think. So there's a lot of work right now to get caught up. We got a little bit behind on the GNOME release. Once we get caught back up, we plan on staying with the previous stable release. So our release cycle is going to line up with GNOME, but it's going to be one release back. So whatever GNOME releases in October is what we will ship the following April.
Okay. And you've mentioned that there are OEMs involved. At any point, will it be possible for regular people to buy endless computers from the likes of Acer and, was it Asus? Was that the other one?
Yeah. I don't know. I certainly hope so. They've only been doing this with the OEMs for a relatively short amount of time. And it has been in specifically targeted markets. It's not been just online available to direct-to-consumer purchase that I know of. I'm sure we would love to get there. We still need to get more apps available before I think that's really a model that's going to work well for users. But that's my job now, is to start getting more app developers targeting Endless.
I'm glad you moved on to that, because I was about to ask you, your role at your previous job at Canonical was a community manager. What are they expecting out of you at Endless? What's your role there, and what do they want from you?
So roughly what the entire community team at Canonical did is what I have to do here at Endless. Anything community related, setting up new community infrastructure. I'm going to try and get like an Ask Ubuntu style kind of site set up for public support. Helping people on the forums.
You've already got a discourse, I noticed. You've got a discourse site, and there's multilingual, there's separate forums for each language or region. I noticed it's fairly active there as well.
Yeah, so that's actually a big challenge. We're very multilingual, more even than Canonical ever targeted. So it's not like, primarily English stuff. We have to support all these different languages, all at the same level. So we've got English and Spanish and Portuguese right now that are all even. Actually, Portuguese probably has better support because we've got more users. But we're going into Indonesia now, and we're going to have to start supporting the native Indonesian language. So that's going to be a big challenge for me, because a lot of software isn't really made to support multiple simultaneous languages at the same time, which is something we found out at Ubuntu too when we did the developer portal, and it had to be in Chinese. Right. So, that's going to be a challenge, but that's, I think, one of the opportunities that we have to grow community too, is that we are very native language focused.
And what following on from that, what proportion of the work, I mean, you talked earlier about how a lot of the stuff, initial development, was done internally. Is there a desire to get external contributors to come in and develop stuff with you, or are you expecting external people to develop the apps on top, the Flatpaks that go on top?
We want to get both. The focus up until now has been building the tools so that app developers can target the OS and the platform with apps. But we want to open up everything to get people to contribute to that. Like I said, we're mostly just a vanilla Debian base, so anybody who's contributing to Debian is helping us automatically. But for the specific, like the OS tree setups and everything that we have, we would love to get people involved in that too.
Where should users go if they want to contribute to Endless?
The best place to go right now is the forums, which is on community.endlessm.com or endlessos.com. I don't remember. It keeps confusing me, our domain name. Because, like I said, it was mobile originally, so it was all Endless M, and now things are shifting to be Endless OS. Let me pull that up. Just so that I know I get the right one. Okay, so it is community.endlessm.com. That's our discourse forum. We also have a Slack channel. If you go to endless.com/download and you scroll down a little bit, there will be links to the forum and the Slack channel, so you can join us there also. Please join the Slack channel. It's pretty new and we don't have a lot of people on there yet, so I would love to get some more voices on there.
Yeah, I joined the other day so I could report a bug in the documentation, and someone picked that up straight away, so that was good.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate that.
No worries. Okay, well, thanks so much for coming on. It's really good to hear things are moving forwards with Endless, and we'll keep an eye on them and hopefully have you back on soon and learn about more regions, more countries, more devices, and maybe when your next release comes out, we could have a chat about what's new.
Absolutely. I'll let you know when something exciting comes around.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Mike.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
If you love the command line as much as we do, send us a command that will blow our minds, and we might even mention it on the show. Send your command line love to show@ubuntupodcast.org.
And now it's time for some command line love. And this week, Stuart Ward emailed us his command line love. He says, "Chaps, thanks for the no ping tip. In return, I would like to mention Nmon. It is sort of top with a whole lot more colourful N-curses display." And he sent us a screenshot, which we will include in the show notes. So has anyone tried Nmon?
Yes, as soon as he mentioned it, I had flashbacks. Not bad Vietnam-style flashbacks, but, nice flashbacks. And I'm pretty sure this thing is something that I used many years ago on IBM AIX systems. I'm pretty sure it existed a long time ago, and I used to use it there, and I loved it. Yes, okay. So I've just scrolled down their history of their homepage, and it says Nmon for Linux was an internal project at IBM for many years and was released to open source in 2009. So yes, it's been around for a very long time, but I'd completely forgotten it exists. It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yep, it's a tool that I've pulled out of the toolbox occasionally. It's not one of those ones that I'm always have at the front of my mind, but whenever you see one of your colleagues yank out Nmon, you suddenly think, yeah, that's a great tool, because it just gives you an immediate overview.
It's weird. People are really funny about their top programs. Like, I'll generally just top because my muscle memory knows the word top, right? And I can run that and I can see what it says and I can press a couple of buttons and I know, I can know how to interpret the output. But so many times when I I'll post a screenshot on Twitter or something to illustrate something eating a lot of memory, and people will reply telling me to use HTOP or Glances or Nmon or whatever else. And I'm like, dude, you're completely missing the point. Look, I'm trying to illustrate how Slack is eating up my machine alive, and you're telling me I should use a different top program. It's bizarre how people have their allegiance to their CPU monitoring tool. Very weird, but Nmon is great.
Great. Well, that's all the command line love for this week.
We can never have too much feedback. Reading your feedback means that we have to come up with less content. So if you're a Redditor, you can comment on our shows through our subreddit, /r/Ubuntu podcast.
And now it's time for all your wonderful feedback. Vinci Amazona, I think that's yes, okay. Emailed us at show@ubuntupodcast.org.
Laughing at people's names.
Yeah, well, I saw it was actually from Nick, so...
I have one question about the new GNOME face of Ubuntu. For those of us that use GNOME and want the default GNOME setting, would we be able to flip the modification switches back off to get the vanilla flavour?
Ooh.
I think the answer to that question is yes, because other than it's going to be a theme and potentially some extensions, and all of those things can be toggled in GNOME Tweak.
Right.
Now, you can also do it via the website, can't you, with a special extension in the browser?
You can. That's just the extensions, though.
Right, but you can flip them off in the way that our listener wants to. I think you know what I mean. So you can flick the switches in the browser to turn them on and off with this extension installed. But I've noticed an interesting thing, and I don't know whether it feels like a bug. Any of those extensions which were installed as debs and didn't come as the extensions come from the website, if they get updated, they turn themselves back on again, which is a bit strange. So you can end up like if you don't like some of the default extensions, you turn them off, and then an update will just turn them all back on again, which is quite frustrating, I found. So yes, I don't know if someone needs to test that in the newer release and find out if that's still a bug, because I had it in 1604. So try that and let us know.
Stephen Brandt emailed us.
Hi there. Lovely show you have. Oh, thank you very much. I have a topic I'd like to see discussed. Recently, there was discovered multiple vulnerabilities in VLC regarding subtitle parsing. The developers of VLC have properly taken care of it, fixed it, and put out a new release. However, it seems in Ubuntu these vulnerabilities don't get patched, because VLC is in a community rather than the main repo, and only main is actively supported and receives fixes. Okay, now for proper Ubuntu I can understand this a little bit, because it doesn't ship VLC in the default install. Still, I think lots of people will have it installed. Now, I happen to be a user of Ubuntu Mate 1604 LTS, or the distro that shall not be named, bit late for that, which does not ship with VLC by default. Does ship with VLC by default. How in the world can we keep up the mantra that Linux is more secure when these popular apps that even get shipped by default don't get their vulnerabilities patched, while on Windows and Mac you can just install updates to the latest version? What does Wimpy have to say about this? Thanks, keep up the good work. Yeah, Wimpy, what have you got to say?
Yeah, so Ubuntu proper is only comprised of applications that are in the main repository. And as Stephen correctly points out, the main repository is the only one that's subject to receiving security updates over the lifetime of that release. I wasn't aware of these vulnerabilities in VLC. And frankly, now that I've been made aware, the onus is on me to now get the necessary patches into VLC in the community repository, which I shall take a look at.
So it is possible for the community repositories to be updated. It just needs someone for the community to do it.
Yeah, the clue's in the name.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's always been the case that, main is the security team will look at those packages and other people look at the ones outside of main. And sometimes canonical people will look at the ones outside of main as well, depending upon their workload. But, if nobody happens to be looking at it, and that's sometimes the case, then a universe package will just not get patched, and that is unfortunate.
Mused Abinkanar posted a comment on our website.
Do you wonder why there is such high traffic for UApp Explorer from Germany? Just get this. The country with the most contributions to English Wikipedia is Germany, not the US or the UK. I quote this from a friend who does research on Wikipedia at the Oxford Internet Institute. Living in Germany for about 7 years, I find many ordinary German citizens do care very deeply about floss and similar stuff in their lives. Frustrated with Google and Apple, it's no wonder they care more about Ubuntu Touch compared to other countries.
That's a fair point. It's funny. I went to see a German comedian last week called Henning Venn, and he's a very, very funny chap, and he makes a lot of fun of the fact that Germans have this ruthless efficiency and we are slackers, which is not unreasonable assertion to make. So kind of echoing what our listener said, yes.
D Shimmer posted on our subreddit /r/Ubuntu podcast.
It is what it is. I'll probably always run stock because the consistency seems to make it easier to support people I have switched to Ubuntu. I'll really miss Unity, and I really appreciate the flow of information that seems to be picking up along with what is being said. Now, if the folks in the desktop team would just make the Ubuntu Mate greeter and boutique part of the install experience, I think things would be on the surest footing going forward.
Yeah. That's not going to happen. I have it on good authority. Neither of those two things will happen.
It's really bizarre because the boutique and the greeter we have discussed in the Ubuntu project for years and years and years. I remember the very first UDS I went to, we talked about, do we want to have a thing that smacks you in the face when you first sign in? And there were arguments from the design team. No, we don't. And people said, yeah, but you want to make it easier for people. And then I think the Chinese variant, Chilin, actually did have a tour that they put on their systems because there was a legally mandated requirement to do it.
Right.
But mainstream Ubuntu never has. And it's quite bonkers that how popular, it is in Ubuntu Mate, but we never actually, pulled our finger out and did it in Ubuntu.
Yeah, when I was in the community, prior to joining and what have you, talking to people at Canonical, it was, the intention for Ubuntu was you just get a clean desktop. Everything should be self-explanatory. You shouldn't need something to, coach you around the system and all the rest of it. Which, I understand, the argument for simplicity and cleanness and what have you there. But I really made this for my family to help them get stuff done without having to get on the phone and ring me. So that's where those tools come from. And it translates, as it happens, to just random people on the internet that install Ubuntu Mate.
Awesome.
And Corey Pollard posted a comment on our website.
Loved Pope's voice on the Rocket Man. Great job. I don't know what he's talking about.
It's a mystery.
No, we're not having that one next.
Well, that's all for episode 16. We'll be back next week when we'll have more news, comment, and discussion.
Whoa,
Lovely.
Thanks again, Joey.
Thank you for
joining
having
us.
me. Thank you.
No worries. And
Awesome.
Keep up the good work with OMG Ubuntu. And if we see any more silly games, we'll pass them your way.
Please do.
Right, take care, everyone. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye. It was Toya Wilcox, wasn't it? Yeah.
Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. She was looking kind of dumb, with her finger and her thumb in the shape of an L on her forehead. Well, the years start coming and they don't stop coming. Fed to the rules and I hit the ground running. Didn't make sense not to live for fun. Your brain gets smart but your head gets dumb. So much to do, so much to see. So what's wrong with taking the back streets? You never know if you don't go. You never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. And all that glitters is gold. Only shooting stars break the mold.